When Saudi Arabia brags it's the guarantor of Islam's two holiest sites, it gives the kingdom an assumed leadership role within the Muslim world. But man oh man, how things have changed under the de facto rule of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Because from the moment he seized power, by locking up his political rivals, including members of his own family, the Saudi government launched a war against Islam. This war has been fought on many fronts, but for one objective only: to give Saudi Arabia a Western-friendly face, but at the expense of Islam and Saudi culture. Because not only is the regime jailing, torturing and executing religious scholars and clerics, but also destroying and desecrating some of Islam's most treasured sites, including the house of the Prophet's first wife, Khadijah, and the place where the home of Islam's first caliph once stood, along with many others we will come to in a moment. You see, MBS wants to attract Western investment and foreign tourism dollars to offset the global decline in demand for oil, as the rest of the world makes the gradual shift towards renewable sources of energy. Look, nobody can begrudge the Saudi government for making adjustments to its economy to account for changing global economic trends. But the actions taken by MBS are representative only of a dictator's lust for totalitarian power, even if it means killing the Muslim world's most beloved religious leaders. On Sunday, MBS sentenced Sheikh Abdullah Basfar to prison for 12 years, but not because he committed an actual crime, because he accepted an invitation to lead prayers at the Hagia Sophia Mosque in Turkey. This is a man who has won the hearts of millions of Muslims around the world for his incredible recitations of Islam's holy book.
ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا.
Last month, MBS even arrested the former Imam of the Grand Mosque in Mecca for merely expressing his concerns about the sudden westernization of Saudi culture.
فما هي إلا مشاريع تغريبية بخطوات مدروسة تدريجية وضوابط تغريبية لا ضوابط شرعية.
Last week, I interviewed Nasser Al-Khani, who recently fled Saudi Arabia to campaign for the release of his father, the prominent Islamic preacher who has been sentenced to death for posting a tweet that urged MBS to release innocent political prisoners. Here's his son.
خرجت لإنقاذ ما يمكن إنقاذه في بلادي من نصرة المعتقلين ورفع الظلم عن والدي المهدد بالإعدام. للأسف أن وطني يتساقط ليس فقط حقوقيا بل في كل المجالات، اجتماعيا، اقتصاديا، سياسيا. باتت أحلام الشباب في ضياع وحقوقهم تنتهك بأحكام قاسية لأجل تغريدة أو رأي في مجلس خاص.
MBS has also arrested popular clerics Ali Al-Mari and Salman, despite they, along with Al-Khani, being praised for their progressive views and opposition to extremism. To put it in simple terms, the Saudi government has co-opted the United States war on terror to accuse pious and popular Muslims of being potential enemies of the state, a policy that has led to the arrests of more than 250 innocent men and women since 2017. Many have been imprisoned and executed for publicly criticizing the regime's crackdown on Islam. Remembering that MBS executed 81 people in a single day earlier this year. But the Saudi government is not only waging a war against the country's religious leaders, but also Islamic sites, monuments and relics. In fact, more than 98% of Saudi Arabia's historical and religious sites have been destroyed since 1985, which has been described as an effort to wipe out history, putting it on par with the Taliban's destruction of historical monuments in Afghanistan. You see, the Saudi royal family might call itself the guardian of Islam's holiest sites, but in reality it holds a deep hatred for Islamic history, which is why in 2012 it built the Mecca Royal Clock Tower on the graves of more than 400 sites of cultural and historical significance, including the site where the home of Islam's first caliph once stood. The Saudi regime has even turned the home belonging to Prophet Muhammad's first wife into a block of toilets. And even more alarming, the Saudi government revealed plans to separate the Prophet's tomb from the Medina Mosque, a task that would amount to its destruction, given you can't move it without destroying it. And you want to know why the Saudi government is doing this? Because it doesn't give a single care about Islam. It cares only about maximizing revenues and profit, which is why it wants everything to look brand new in order to attract Muslim pilgrims and Western tourists. It has even built an American hotel next to Islam's holiest site.
The internet has been buzzing about Paris Hilton. There's been outrage. She's opening a handbag store in the holy city of Mecca, Saudi Arabia. People were incensed the socialite would be selling purses on the way to pilgrimage. Paris was proud, though.
And if selling American consumerism from the site of Islam's holiest mosque isn't bad enough, then consider this. The Saudi government rewarded Motawif, an Indian company, the rights to handle all Hajj pilgrimage bookings. This company is directly tied to the Modi regime in India, which has been accused of pushing 200 million Muslims to the brink of genocide. Recently, I interviewed European and American pilgrims who had their once-in-a-lifetime Hajj experience ruined by Motawif.
Application portal was just so inefficient. They didn't reply. Their emails, you just couldn't get through on the phone. There was a time right at the start when they would reply to phone calls. As soon as people started phoning up more and more to try and ask why their applications weren't going through, the phone lines were suddenly dead, and you just couldn't get through. You just could not speak to someone about your application. Their email system wasn't much better. You get a reply maybe every few days, and that's if you were lucky.
From partnering with Muslim-hating far-right political parties in India and America, to destroying Islamic historical sites, to executing religious scholars and clerics, it's evidently clear the Saudi regime under MBS is waging a war against Islam. For this reason, the human rights organisations Sanad UK and Cage UK have launched a campaign that calls on the international community to stand up against the injustices and human rights violations that are taking place under the authority of the Saudi regime. I have joined this campaign, and so should you.